A friend's persistent push-Gemma Hayes stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, wondering for the 100th time why she had agreed to this ridiculous plan. Her auburn hair fell in soft waves past her shoulders, and she had actually put on makeup for the first time in months. The emerald green dress she wore was borrowed from Riley, who had insisted it brought out her hazel eyes. "This is a terrible idea," she whispered to her reflection. Her phone buzzed with another encouraging text from Riley. "You look amazing. Trevor is going to love you. Just be yourself and have fun." Gemma took a deep breath and grabbed her clutch. At 29 years old, she had built a successful career as a financial analyst at Blake Enterprises, one of Manhattan's most prestigious investment firms. She had her own apartment, a respectable salary, and a life that made sense. What she didn't have was a dating life. And Riley had made it her personal mission to change that. The past year had been focused entirely on work. After her relationship with Nathan had crashed and burned, Gemma had thrown herself into spreadsheets and quarterly reports. Nathan had been charming, successful, and ultimately engaged to someone else. The discovery that she had been the other woman, completely unaware, had shattered something inside her. Trust became a luxury she couldn't afford, but Riley was relentless. Week after week, she had pushed, prodded, and pleaded for Gemma to give dating another chance. Finally, worn down by her friend's determination, Gemma had agreed to one blind date. Just one. If it went badly, Riley had promised to never bring it up again. The upscale restaurant La Maison Rouge sat nestled between towering buildings in the heart of the city, its French facade glowing with warm light. Gemma's heels clicked against the sidewalk as she approached, her stomach doing nervous flips. According to Riley, Trevor Morgan was a 32-year-old architect who loved classic films and rescued dogs in his spare time. He sounded almost too good to be true. The hostess greeted her with a professional smile. "Good evening. Do you have a reservation? I'm meeting someone. The reservation should be under Morgan." Yes. Right this way." Gemma followed the hostess through the elegant dining room, past tables draped in white linen and flickering candles. Soft jazz music played in the background, and the scent of garlic and wine filled the air. This was definitely fancier than she had expected for a first date. The hostess stopped at a corner table near the windows, where a man sat with his back to them, studying the wine menu. "Here we are. Enjoy your evening." "Thank you," Gemma said, moving around the table with a practiced smile. "Hi, you must be Trevor." The words died in her throat as the man looked up. Not Trevor. Not even close. Dominic Blake, CEO of Blake Enterprises, sat before her in a perfectly tailored navy suit, his dark hair styled with casual precision. His steel blue eyes widened in surprise that mirrored her own shock. "Miss Hayes." His deep voice carried a note of confusion. The shocking discovery, Gemma felt the blood drain from her face. This couldn't be happening. Her boss, the man she reported to indirectly, the CEO whose quarterly meetings she attended with trembling hands, was sitting at the table meant for her blind date. "Mr. Blake," she stammered, "I think there's been some mistake. I'm supposed to be meeting someone named Trevor Morgan." Dominic stood slowly, his 6'2" frame towering over her. "That's interesting. I was told I'd be meeting someone named Gemma, but my brother assured me it was a woman from his photography class." They stared at each other in dawning horror and realization. "Riley," Gemma breathed. "Jordan," Dominic said at the same time. "Your brother Jordan Blake and my friend Riley Patterson," Gemma said slowly. "They set us up, without telling either of us who we were actually meeting." Dominic's jaw tightened, but there was something else in his expression. Something that looked almost like amusement. "I'm going to kill my brother. I'll help you hide the body after I'm done with Riley." An awkward silence settled between them. Other diners were starting to glance their way, and Gemma became acutely aware that she was standing in the middle of an expensive restaurant, having a very strange conversation with her boss. "I should go," she said quickly, clutching her purse. "This is inappropriate. We work together. You're my boss." "Well, technically, you're my boss's boss's boss, but still. I'm so sorry for this confusion." "Wait, Dominic's hand moved as if to touch her arm, then stopped. You don't have to leave, Mr. Blake. It's just Dominic. And we're already here. The reservation is made. It would be a shame to waste it. He gestured to the chair across from him. Besides, I'm curious about what our meddling siblings thought would happen if they actually succeeded in this scheme. An unexpected decision. Gemma hesitated, her mind racing through 100 reasons why this was a terrible idea. Office politics, professional boundaries, the potential for gossip. All of it screamed at her to politely excuse herself and never speak of this again. But something else held her in place. In 3 years of working at Blake Enterprises, she had seen Dominic Blake exactly 12 times, always from a distance or across a conference table. He was known for his brilliant business mind, his demanding standards, his complete lack of interest in workplace socializing. The man was a legend, built on reputation and quarterly earnings reports. This version of Dominic, standing in a romantic restaurant looking slightly uncomfortable and genuinely surprised, was someone entirely different. Someone human. One drink, she heard herself say. Then I'm leaving and we're never speaking of this again. A slow smile spread across Dominic's face, transforming his usually serious features. Deal. They sat down across from each other, and the awkwardness returned full force. The waiter appeared immediately, sensing the tension. Good evening. Can I start you with something to drink? Whiskey, Dominic said. Neat, white wine, Gemma added. Something dry. As the waiter departed, they sat in silence, both studying the menu with intense concentration. Finally, Dominic spoke. For what it's worth, I had no idea about any of this. Jordan has been nagging me for months about getting out more, but I never imagined he'd resort to deception. Riley's the same way. She thinks I'm too focused on work. Gemma set down her menu. She doesn't understand that I'm perfectly happy with my life as it is. Are you? The question was gentle, but it hit harder than Gemma expected. She looked up to find Dominic watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. In the candlelight, his blue eyes seemed darker, more thoughtful. This close, she could see the faint lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled more than his reputation implied. I don't know anymore, she admitted quietly. The waiter returned with their drinks, and Gemma took a grateful sip of wine. The crisp, clean taste helped settle her nerves slightly. Breaking the ice, can I ask you something? Dominic said, leaning back in his chair. And I promise this isn't a work question, okay? The Henderson merger last quarter. You were the analyst who found the discrepancy in their accounting, weren't you? The one that saved us from a disastrous acquisition. Gemma felt heat rise in her cheeks. That was just doing my job. That was exceptional work. I wanted to commend you personally, but by the time I arranged a meeting, you had already moved on to another project. He paused. I've been wanting to tell you that for months. You notice my work? The words came out more surprised than she intended. Gemma, everyone in the executive office knows who you are. You're one of the best analysts we have. Dominic's expression grew serious. I notice a lot of things about my employees, especially the talented ones. The way he said it made her wonder exactly what else he had noticed. Had he seen her arrive early every morning? Always the first one in the office? Had he noticed how she stayed late, working through problems long after everyone else had gone home? Thank you, she managed. That means a lot. Their food orders were taken, and gradually the conversation began to flow more naturally. Dominic talked about growing up in Boston, the youngest of 3 siblings, who were all overachievers. His father had been a factory worker who saved every penny to send his children to good schools. Dominic had earned a scholarship to Harvard and built his company from nothing but ambition and determination. Gemma found herself sharing stories she rarely told anyone. How her grandmother had been her biggest supporter, encouraging her dreams even when they seemed impossible. How she had worked 3 jobs to get through college. How success had come with sacrifices she was only now beginning to understand. Riley thinks I'm afraid of taking chances, Gemma said, surprising herself with the honesty. She says, I've built walls around my heart, and have you. Wouldn't you, after being lied to for a year? After discovering that everything you believed about someone was completely false? Dominic's expression darkened. Someone hurt you. His name was Nathan. He was charming, successful, and engaged to someone else. I found out when his fiancée showed up at my apartment with photos and accusations. Gemma took another sip of wine. I was the other woman, and I had no idea. It's not your fault. My head knows that. My heart is still working on believing it. The admission hung between them, raw and vulnerable. Dominic reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of touching hers. For what it's worth, he said quietly, anyone who would deceive you like that is a fool. And anyone who gets the chance to know the real you should count themselves incredibly lucky. Gemma's heart hammered in her chest. This was dangerous territory. This was her boss, sitting in a romantic restaurant, saying things that made her want to believe in possibilities she had sworn off forever. Dominic, she whispered, what are we doing here? His blue eyes held hers, and in them she saw the same confusion and longing she felt. I have absolutely no idea, but I don't want it to stop. The magic of honesty, the restaurant hummed with quiet conversation around them, but Gemma felt as though she and Dominic existed in their own private world. The initial shock of their unexpected meeting had faded, replaced by something far more dangerous. Genuine connection. Tell me something nobody at work knows about you, Dominic said, swirling the whiskey in his glass. Something real. Gemma considered the question carefully. In the office, she was efficient, professional, always composed. But sitting here with wine warming her from the inside and candlelight softening everything, she felt brave enough to be honest. I write poetry, she confessed. Terrible emotional poetry that will never see the light of day. I fill notebooks with it, then hide them in my closet like they're evidence of some crime. Dominic's smile was genuine and reached his eyes. That's not terrible. That's beautiful. Do you share it with anyone? Never. It's too personal, too raw. In those pages, I'm not the careful analyst everyone thinks they know. I'm just a woman trying to make sense of feelings that don't fit into spreadsheets. I'd like to read them someday, Dominic said softly. If you'd trust me with that. The offer felt weighted with meaning. Gemma's pulse quickened. What about you? What's your secret? Dominic leaned forward, and the movement brought him closer to her across the small table. I hate being CEO sometimes. The board meetings, the constant pressure, the way everyone looks to me for answers I don't always have. Some mornings, I sit in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes, just breathing before I can face walking into that building. The vulnerability in his admission shocked her. This was Dominic Blake, the man who commanded boardrooms and closed billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. The idea that he struggled with the same doubts and fears as everyone else made him suddenly impossibly human.
Why do you do it then?
Gemma asked. Because 300 people depend on the company for their livelihoods. Because my father worked himself to exhaustion so I could have opportunities he never had. Because walking away feels like admitting defeat. He paused, his gaze intense. But sitting here with you, I'm remembering there might be more to life than quarterly earnings and market share. The crisis arrives, their meals arrived. Perfectly prepared dishes that smelled divine. They ate slowly, talking between bites about everything and nothing. Gemma learned that Dominic loved old jazz records and could cook surprisingly well. Dominic discovered that Gemma had a weakness for terrible reality television and could quote entire scenes from classic movies. The evening felt suspended in time. Perfect and impossible in equal measure. Then Gemma's phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. I'm sorry, she said, glancing at the screen. Her expression changed immediately. Oh no, what is it? It's the office. The Peterson account. There's some kind of emergency. She looked up at Dominic, torn between professional duty and the moment they were sharing. I have to check on this. The Peterson deal closes tomorrow, and if something's wrong, I'll drive you, Dominic said immediately. Already signaling for the check? You don't have to do that. Gemma. If there's a crisis with the Peterson account, I need to be there anyway. That's a $40 million deal. 20 minutes later, they were in Dominic's sleek black car, racing through Manhattan traffic toward the Blake Enterprises building. The easy intimacy of the restaurant had shifted into focused professionalism. But Gemma was acutely aware of Dominic's presence beside her in the confined space. The building was mostly dark when they arrived. Only a few windows glowing on the upper floors. They took the elevator in silence, and Gemma tried not to notice how good Dominic smelled. a subtle cologne that reminded her of cedar and rain. The 42nd floor was chaos. Papers covered every surface, and 3 analysts hunched over computers with expressions of growing panic. Claire Thompson, the senior analyst on the Peterson account, looked up with relief when she saw Gemma. "Thank God you're here. The numbers aren't adding up. We've been over everything 3 times, but there's a $7 million discrepancy in the asset valuation. And Peterson's team is going to notice when they review the final documents tomorrow morning." Gemma shed her coat and moved immediately to the nearest computer. "Show me everything." For the next 4 hours, they worked. Gemma's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up files and cross-referencing data. Dominic rolled up his sleeves and dove into the research alongside them, his business expertise proving invaluable as they traced the error. Through layers of complicated financial instruments around midnight, Claire and the other analysts went to grab coffee, leaving Gemma and Dominic alone in the conference room surrounded by papers and empty takeout containers. "Found it," Gemma said suddenly, pointing at her screen. "There. Someone entered the commercial property values twice, once in assets and once in projected earnings. It's inflating the total by exactly $7 million. Dominic leaned over her shoulder to see, and Gemma's breath caught at his nearness. She could feel the warmth radiating from his body, smell his cologne mixed with the faint scent of coffee. "You're brilliant," he said quietly. "Do you know that?" She turned her head slightly, and suddenly their faces were inches apart. The air between them felt electric, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure.
Dominic,
she whispered. "We shouldn't." "I know." But he didn't move away. His blue eyes searched hers, asking a question she wasn't sure she could answer. The moment stretched between them, filled with everything they weren't saying. Then footsteps in the hallway broke the spell, and they sprang apart just as Claire returned with coffee, whispers and warnings by the time they finished correcting the Peterson documents. Dawn was painting the sky outside the windows in shades of pink and gold. Gemma's eyes burned with exhaustion, but she felt energized in a way that had nothing to do with coffee. "You all did excellent work tonight," Dominic said to the team. "Take tomorrow off. You've earned it." As the analysts gathered their belongings and headed home, Gemma found herself alone with Dominic once again. The office felt different in the early morning light, intimate despite its professional trappings. "Can I drive you home?" Dominic asked. "I can take a car service." "You've done enough, Gemma." The way he said her name made her stomach flutter. "Please." "Let me make sure you get home safely," she nodded, too tired to argue, and they made their way back to his car. The drive to her apartment in Brooklyn was quiet, both of them lost in thought when they arrived. Dominic walked her to her building's entrance despite her protests. "Thank you," Gemma said. "For dinner, for the crisis management, for everything." "This doesn't have to end here," Dominic said softly. "What we started tonight. You're my boss, Dominic. This is complicated in ways I'm not sure either of us can handle. Then we'll figure it out together." He reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the touch sending shivers down her spine. "I haven't felt this alive in years, Gemma. Don't ask me to pretend tonight didn't happen." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Her hands trembled as she read it. "Saw you leaving the office with the boss. Interesting. Would be a shame if HR found out about your late-night meetings. Some people might think you're sleeping your way to the top." The message felt like ice water down her back. Gemma showed it to Dominic, watching his expression darken. "Who would send this?" she asked. "I don't know, but we'll find out." His voice was hard. "Nobody threatens you. Not while I'm around." Office politics turned ugly the next day. Gemma arrived at work to find the office buzzing with whispered conversations that stopped abruptly when she walked by. Eyes followed her through the hallways. Colleagues who normally greeted her warmly suddenly seemed distant. Riley caught up with her at the coffee station. "We need to talk. Now." They ducked into an empty conference room, and Riley closed the door firmly. "There are rumors," Riley said without preamble, "about you and Dominic Blake. People are saying you two left the restaurant together, then spent the night alone in the office. We were working on the Peterson account. There was a crisis. I know that, and you know that, but gossip doesn't care about facts. Riley's expression was worried. Gemma, someone is spreading stories about you, saying you're using your relationship with the CEO to advance your career. Gemma felt sick. But nothing happened. We just talked over dinner, then handled a work emergency. Did you want something to happen? The question hung in the air. Gemma couldn't lie to her best friend. Yes, maybe. I don't know. Riley, what have you done? You set us up without telling either of us. And now, everything is falling apart. I'm sorry, Riley said genuinely. Jordan and I just thought you two would be perfect together. We didn't think about the complications. Gemma's phone buzzed again. Another anonymous message. Back off from Blake, or everyone will know exactly what kind of woman you really are. This is your only warning. Her hands shook as she showed Riley the text. This is serious, Riley said. We need to tell someone. Security, HR, somebody. And say what? That I'm being threatened because of a date that technically wasn't supposed to happen? That will just make the rumors worse. Before Riley could respond, there was a knock on the conference room door. Dominic entered, his expression grim. We need to talk, he said, looking at Gemma. Both of us. In my office now. The ex who never left Dominic's corner office on the 55th floor was everything Gemma had imagined. Floor-to-ceiling windows with stunning city views, modern furniture in blacks and grays, and an atmosphere of controlled power. But today, the space felt threatening rather than impressive. Sit down, Dominic said, gesturing to the chairs facing his desk. His tone was professional, distant, and it hurt more than Gemma expected. I received a visit this morning from Veronica Cross. Do you know who she is? Gemma shook her head. She's my ex-girlfriend from 5 years ago. Also a former business partner who owns 15% of Blake Enterprises. Dominic's jaw tightened. She's heard the rumors about us. She's threatening to call an emergency board meeting to question my judgment and leadership. The words hit Gemma like physical blows. Because of me. Because someone has been feeding her information about our personal lives. Someone who wants to cause damage to both of us. Dominic pulled up his computer screen and turned it toward her. Security footage from the restaurant, from the office building, even from the parking garage. All showing her and Dominic together in ways that could be interpreted as intimate. Veronica's using these to build a case that I'm compromising the company by engaging in an inappropriate relationship with an employee. She's always wanted more control over Blake Enterprises, and this gives her the perfect opening. Then we tell everyone the truth, Gemma said desperately. That we were set up by our siblings, that nothing inappropriate happened, that we were just working. The CEO with a history of failed relationships, or the ambitious analyst who suddenly has access to the executive floor? Dominic's voice was bitter. Veronica has already started planting doubts with board members. Gemma stood, her legs unsteady. What are you saying? I'm saying that maybe this was a mistake. All of it. The dinner, the late-night work session, letting myself believe that we could somehow make this work despite every rational reason why we can't. The rejection felt like a knife between her ribs. So that's it? Someone threatens us, and you just give up? I'm trying to protect you, Gemma. Can't you see that? If this continues, your reputation will be destroyed. Everything you've worked for, gone because of office gossip and malicious rumors. Maybe I'm willing to take that risk. Well, I'm not. Dominic's control finally cracked. I won't be responsible for ruining your career. I won't be the reason you lose everything. The truth behind the threats, Gemma felt tears burning in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of him. You know what, Dominic? Maybe you're right. Maybe this was all a terrible mistake. She moved toward the door, then stopped. But not for the reasons you think. The mistake was believing that you were different. That you might actually be brave enough to fight for something that matters. She left his office without looking back, her heart shattering with each step. Back at her desk, Gemma tried to focus on work, but the whispers followed her everywhere. Colleagues avoided making eye contact. Someone had left a printed copy of Blake Enterprises' fraternization policy on her desk. Certain sections highlighted in yellow. Her phone buzzed. Riley. My office. Now, I found something. Gemma made her way to Riley's office, grateful for her friend's fierce loyalty. Riley closed the door and pulled out her laptop. "I've been doing some digging," Riley said. "Those anonymous texts you've been getting? I had a friend in IT trace them. They're coming from inside the company." "Who?" Riley pulled up a personnel file. Veronica Cross's assistant, a woman named Michelle Harper, who had worked at Blake Enterprises for 8 years. Michelle has been with Veronica since before Veronica and Dominic broke up. She's loyal to a fault, and apparently she's been conducting surveillance on Dominic for months. The restaurant photos, the office footage, all of it was her. Gemma stared at the evidence. "But why target me specifically?" "Because you're a threat. Not just to Veronica's business interests, but to something else." Riley pulled up another file. "I did some more research. 5 years ago, when Dominic and Veronica were together, there were 3 other women who briefly caught his attention. All of them experienced similar harassment. Anonymous threats, career sabotage, mysterious scandals. Veronica has been doing this for years. She's obsessed with Dominic. Even after they broke up, she's been systematically eliminating any woman who might have a real chance with him. And you, Gemma, you're different. You actually made him happy. That makes you dangerous." Before Gemma could process this information, her phone rang. Dominic's name appeared on the screen. "Don't answer," Riley warned. "Not until we figure out our next move." But Gemma answered anyway. "Hello? Gemma, I need you to listen to me very carefully." Dominic's voice was urgent. "Veronica just called an emergency board meeting for this afternoon. She's going to try to force me out as CEO using our relationship as evidence of poor judgment. But I just received something in the mail, something that changes everything." "What is it?" "Evidence. Photos, emails, financial records showing that Veronica has been sabotaging the company for years. Small things that individually seemed like bad luck, but together paint a picture of deliberate corporate espionage. And there's more. Evidence that she's been harassing women in my life, including you." Gemma's heart raced. "Where did this come from?" "The return address says it's from Jordan, but the handwriting looks different. Someone wanted us to have this information." Riley was frantically typing on her laptop. "Gemma, tell him to check the metadata on any digital files. If this is real, we can use it to stop Veronica permanently." "Did you hear that?" Gemma asked. "Gemma, I need your help. I need you to stand with me in this board meeting. I know I hurt you earlier. I know I said things I didn't mean because I was scared. But please, give me another chance to make this right." Gemma looked at Riley, who nodded encouragingly. "What time is the meeting?" 3 o'clock. "Conference room A? I'll be there." Preparing for battle, the hours before the board meeting passed in a blur of preparation. Gemma, Riley, and Dominic worked together in a secure conference room, reviewing the evidence that had mysteriously appeared. The files were devastating, proof of Veronica's corporate sabotage, documentation of harassment campaigns against multiple women, and financial records showing she had been secretly selling Blake Enterprises' proprietary information to competitors. "This is enough to destroy her," Riley said, studying the documents. "But we need to verify everything before we present it to the board. If even one piece is fabricated, she'll use it to discredit the rest." Dominic's phone rang. It was his brother Jordan. "Please tell me you didn't do something crazy," Dominic said, putting the call on speaker. "Define crazy," Jordan's voice came through, sounding pleased with himself. "But before you get mad, you should know that I had help. Professional help." "What did you do, Jordan?" "I hired a private investigator 3 months ago. After Riley told me about her plan to set you two up, I started looking into why your previous relationships always seemed to implode mysteriously. The investigator found Veronica's harassment patterns, and then we kept digging." Gemma felt a surge of gratitude for this man she had never met. "You've been investigating this for 3 months? Someone had to protect my brother's love life. He's terrible at it himself."
Ow.
Jordan's tone became serious. "But Gemma, there's something else you should know. Michelle Harper, Veronica's assistant, she's willing to testify. She's tired of being complicit in Veronica's schemes. She wants to come forward. Can we trust her?" Dominic asked. She's scared, but she's genuine. I have her statement recorded and notarized. She admits to everything, the surveillance, the threatening messages, even planting stories with gossip columnists to damage your reputation. Riley pulled up Michelle's personnel file again. She's worked there for 8 years. Her testimony will be credible.
Oh.
Dominic checked his watch. The meeting starts in 40 minutes. We need to move. As they gathered the evidence and prepared their presentation, Gemma felt Dominic's hand brush against hers. She looked up to find him watching her with an expression that made her breath catch. Whatever happens in there, he said quietly, I want you to know that last night was real. My feelings for you are real. I was a coward this morning, and I'm sorry. We can talk about us after we deal with Veronica, Gemma said, though her heart raced at his words. No, Dominic took her hand properly this time. I need to say this now. I've spent 5 years being careful, being cautious, protecting myself from getting hurt again. But meeting you made me realize that I've been protecting myself right out of actually living. Whatever the board decides today, whatever happens with the company, I want a chance with you. A real chance. Tears pricked Gemma's eyes. Dominic, you don't have to answer now. Just promise me you'll think about it. She nodded, unable to speak past the emotion clogging her throat. Riley cleared her throat diplomatically. As touching as this is, we have a board meeting to win. Let's go take down a corporate villain. The board meeting confrontation conference room A was packed. The 12 board members sat around the massive table, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Veronica Cross sat at the far end, perfectly composed in a blood-red suit, her blonde hair swept back in a severe style that emphasized her sharp features. She looked like a predator ready to strike. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, Veronica began, her voice smooth and confident. I've called this emergency meeting because I've become aware of a serious breach in professional conduct that threatens the integrity of Blake Enterprises. Dominic remained standing at the head of the table, and Gemma admired his composure despite the attack. She stood beside him, Riley slightly behind them both. The CEO of this company, Veronica continued, has been engaging in an inappropriate relationship with a subordinate employee. This represents a clear conflict of interest and demonstrates a lack of judgment that calls into question his fitness to lead. She displayed the surveillance photos on the large screen, images of Gemma and Dominic at the restaurant. Leaving the office building in the early morning hours, several board members shifted uncomfortably. Others leaned forward with interest. Ms. Cross raises concerns that deserve to be addressed, Dominic said calmly. But before we discuss my personal life, I think the board should be aware of some information that has recently come to light regarding Ms. Cross herself. Veronica's confident expression flickered slightly. This meeting is about your conduct, not mine. Actually, Riley stepped forward. It's about protecting Blake Enterprises from someone who has been actively working to destroy it from within. Riley pulled up the first document on the screen, replacing Veronica's surveillance photos with financial records. Over the past 5 years, Riley explained, Blake Enterprises has lost 7 major accounts under mysterious circumstances. Competitors somehow obtained proprietary information that allowed them to undercut our bids. The board attributed these losses to market forces and bad luck. She clicked to the next screen, showing email correspondence. But these emails obtained through a legal investigation show that Veronica Cross has been selling company secrets to our competitors. She's made over $2 million in payments disguised as consulting fees. The board members erupted in shocked murmurs. Veronica stood, her composure cracking. This is absurd. Those documents are fabricated. They're not, Dominic said firmly. We've had them verified by 3 independent forensic accountants. The metadata confirms their authenticity. Gemma stepped forward, her voice steady, despite her racing heart. There's more. Ms. Cross has also been conducting a systematic harassment campaign against women in Dominic's personal life. She displayed Michelle Harper's signed a statement along with evidence of the threatening messages, surveillance photos, and documented incidents of career sabotage. For 5 years, Veronica Cross has used her position As a stakeholder in this company, to control and manipulate the CEO's personal relationships, she's violated privacy laws, engaged in cyberstalking, and used company resources to conduct illegal surveillance. This is a witch hunt. Veronica's voice rose, her carefully maintained facade shattering. You're all going to believe some junior analysts and fabricated evidence over me? I saved this company. My family's money kept Blake Enterprises afloat when Dominic nearly ran it into the ground. Your family's money came with strings, Dominic said coldly. Strings you've been using to manipulate and control me for 5 years. But that ends today. The sisters' confession, the conference room doors opened, and a woman Gemma didn't recognize entered. She was in her early 30s, with dark hair and Dominic's blue eyes. Jordan Blake followed close behind her. I'm sorry I'm late, the woman said. I'm Cassidy Blake, Dominic's sister, and I have something the board needs to hear. Veronica's face went pale. Cassidy, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Cassidy moved to stand beside her brother. 5 years ago, when Dominic's company was struggling, Veronica approached me privately. She offered to invest her family's money, but only if I helped her maintain control over Dominic's personal life. She was obsessed with him, even after their relationship ended. The board members leaned forward. Captivated by this new revelation, I was young and stupid. And I thought I was helping protect my brother from getting hurt again, Cassidy continued, her voice breaking. But Veronica used the information I gave her to sabotage his relationships. Every woman who got close to Dominic mysteriously faced career problems, harassment, or public scandals. I didn't realize the extent of what she was doing until Jordan's investigator contacted me last month. She pulled out her own phone and displayed text messages on the screen. Our messages from Veronica asking me to spy on Dominic, to report who he was seeing, where he was going. I complied because I felt guilty about the company's financial struggles. But when I learned about Gemma, about how genuinely happy Dominic seemed, I couldn't participate anymore. I'm the one who collected the evidence and sent it to Jordan. Dominic stared at his sister, pain and understanding warring in his expression. Cassidy, I'm so sorry, she whispered. I let you down. I let fear and guilt turn me into someone I'm ashamed of. Dominic crossed the distance between them and pulled his sister into a hug. You came forward. That's what matters, Veronica. Seeing her carefully constructed plans collapsing, made one last desperate play. Even if everything they're saying is true, she said, her voice desperate. It doesn't change the fact that Dominic violated company policy by pursuing a relationship with an employee. That still demonstrates poor judgment. Actually, Riley interjected smoothly. Mr. Blake and Ms. Hayes were set up on a blind date by their respective siblings, without either of them knowing who they were meeting. The relationship, such as it is, began outside of work in a personal capacity. As long as proper disclosure is made to HR and appropriate professional boundaries are maintained going forward, there's no policy violation. One of the senior board members, an older woman named Patricia Sullivan, spoke up. I've been on this board for 15 years. I've watched Dominic Blake build this company from nothing into $1 billion enterprise. His judgment in business has been consistently excellent. As for his personal life, that's frankly none of our concern unless it actively harms the company. And from where I'm sitting, the only person who has harmed Blake Enterprises is Veronica Cross. The other board members nodded in agreement. Patricia turned to Veronica with steel in her eyes. Ms. Cross, effective immediately, your family's shares will be bought out at market value. You are removed from this board, banned from company premises. We will be pursuing legal action for corporate espionage and harassment. Security will escort you from the building. New beginnings. 2 security guards appeared at the door as if summoned. Veronica looked around the room, seeing no allies left, only condemnation in the faces that had once shown her deference. You'll regret this, she hissed at Dominic. All of you. The only regret I have, Dominic said quietly, is that I didn't see through you sooner. Goodbye, Veronica. As the guards escorted her from the room, the tension drained from the space. The board members began talking among themselves. Discussing next steps and legal strategies, Patricia approached Dominic and Gemma. I assume you two will be filing proper disclosure paperwork with HR. Dominic looked at Gemma, his eyebrows raised in question. She smiled and nodded. Yes, ma'am, Dominic said. We will. Good, because I happen to think you make a lovely couple, and it would be a shame to lose either of you over paperwork. Patricia's stern expression softened into a smile. Blake Enterprises was built on innovation and breaking conventional rules. Mr. Blake, don't let bureaucracy keep you from being happy. As the board members filed out, Riley hugged Gemma tightly. I'm sorry I dragged you into all this drama. Are you kidding? You gave me the best thing that's ever happened to me. Gemma looked over at Dominic, who was talking with his siblings. Even if it was terrifying. Jordan approached with Cassidy. Gemma Hayes, it's wonderful to finally meet you properly. My brother hasn't shut up about you for weeks, Jordan Dominic warned, but he was smiling. It's true. Even before the blind date, he kept finding excuses to walk past your desk. I just need to check on the Henderson project. I should review the quarterly analysis personally. We all knew what was really happening. Gemma felt her cheeks flush. You were checking on me? I was admiring your work ethic, Dominic said diplomatically, and maybe occasionally hoping you'd look up and notice me. I noticed, Gemma admitted. I always noticed. Cassidy touched Gemma's arm gently. I owe you an apology too. My actions contributed to making your life difficult these past few weeks. I'm truly sorry. You came forward when it mattered, Gemma said. That took real courage. Riley checked her watch. As much as I'd love to stay for this heartwarming family reunion, I have actual work to do. Some of us have to maintain our reputations as responsible employees. She winked at Gemma and left with Jordan, leaving Dominic, Gemma, and Cassidy alone in the conference room. I'll leave you two alone, Cassidy said, heading toward the door. She paused and looked back at her brother. For what it's worth, Dominic, she's perfect for you. Don't screw this up. I'll do my best. It's a real first date when they were finally alone. Dominic and Gemma stood facing each other across the conference table, where they had just defeated a common enemy. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, painting everything in gold. So, Dominic said, moving around the table toward her about that proper first date. I think we've already had 3 dates, Gemma pointed out. The blind date that wasn't, the all-night work crisis, and the corporate battle we just won together. Those don't count. They were all disasters in their own ways. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. I want to take you somewhere without surveillance cameras or emergency phone calls. Somewhere we can just be 2 people getting to know each other. What did you have in mind? There's a jazz club in the village. Small, intimate, the kind of place where they actually appreciate the music. I thought maybe you could tell me more about that poetry you write. Gemma's heart swelled. He had remembered that detail from their dinner conversation, had held on to it through all the chaos. I'd like that, she said softly. Dominic reached out and gently cupped her face with his hand. I need you to understand something, Gemma. This isn't just attraction or curiosity or rebound from years of being alone. When I look at you, I see someone who challenges me to be better. Someone who makes me remember why I started this company in the first place. Not for money or power, but to build something meaningful. Dominic, she whispered, her hands coming up to rest on his chest. She could feel his heart beating rapidly beneath her palms. I'm falling in love with you, he said simply. I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. But it's true, and I needed you to know. Tears spilled down Gemma's cheeks, but they were happy tears this time. I'm falling in love with you too. It terrifies me and thrills me in equal measure. Then let's be terrified together. He leaned down and kissed her, soft and gentle at first, then deeper as she responded. It was a kiss that tasted like promise and possibility, like endings and beginnings wrapped together. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Gemma laughed. Riley is going to be insufferably smug about this. Jordan, too, will never hear the end of how they're matchmaking. Genius saved us both from lives of lonely workaholic misery. Maybe we should send them a thank you card. Or we could just name our firstborn after them. Gemma's eyes widened, and Dominic laughed at her expression. Too fast? He asked. Maybe a little. Ask me again in a year. Deal. 6 months later, the jazz club was exactly as Dominic had described. Small, dimly lit, with music that filled the soul. Gemma and Dominic sat at a corner table, her hand resting in his as a pianist played a haunting version of a Billie Holiday song. They had navigated the past 6 months carefully, filing proper paperwork with HR, maintaining professional boundaries at work while nurturing their relationship outside the office. Gemma had been promoted to senior analyst, a position she earned through her exceptional work on the Peterson account and several other successful projects. The promotion had come with Riley's enthusiastic recommendation and the full support of the board. Veronica Cross had been charged with corporate espionage and harassment. The legal proceedings were ongoing, but she would never threaten them again. "What are you thinking about?" Dominic asked, noticing her distant expression. "About how different my life is now compared to 6 months ago. How one blind date changed everything." "Best blind date in history," Dominic said. "Even if we both thought we were meeting someone else." "I'm glad I met you instead," Gemma said, "even with all the complications and drama." Speaking of drama, Dominic pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "I have something for you." Gemma's breath caught. "Dominic, if that's what I think it is, it's not," he said quickly, opening the box to reveal a delicate key on a chain. "It's a key to my apartment. I know we agreed to take things slow, and I respect that. But I want you to know that whenever you're ready, you have a place in my life, in my home, in my future." The gift was perfect, romantic without being pushy, significant without being overwhelming. "I love it," she said, letting him fasten the chain around her neck. The key rested just above her heart. "And for the record, I think I'm ready. Maybe not to move in yet, but ready to stop being so careful. Ready to actually live this relationship instead of just surviving it." "Yeah." "Yeah?" Dominic kissed her again, right there in the jazz club, and Gemma felt complete in a way she never had before. The music swirled around them, and for once, she wasn't worried about what came next. She was just present, happy, and impossibly in love. Riley and Jordan, watching from a table across the room, where they had been secretly observing the couple, high-fived each other with smug satisfaction. "We're basically professional matchmakers now," Riley whispered. "We should start a business." "Blake Patterson Matchmaking Services," Jordan suggested. "We bring together people who are perfect for each other, but too stubborn to realize it." "I think we should quit while we're ahead," Riley said, laughing. "Lightning doesn't strike twice." But as she watched Gemma and Dominic lost in their own world, she felt a warm satisfaction that had nothing to do with being right. Her best friend was happy. Genuinely happy. For the first time in years, the poetry reading 3 weeks later, Gemma found herself standing in Dominic's apartment, the key he had given her still warm in her hand from where she had clutched it nervously during the entire subway ride. She had never been to his place before. Always meeting at restaurants or her smaller Brooklyn apartment, the space was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, modern furniture with warm touches that made it feel lived in rather than staged, and an entire wall of bookshelves filled with everything from business journals to classic literature. "You came," Dominic said, appearing from the kitchen with 2 glasses of wine. He had changed from his usual suits into jeans and a casual button-down shirt, and Gemma's heart did a little flip at how approachable he looked. You invited me to dinner?" "Of course I came. I meant you used the key instead of buzzing up." "That's significant." Gemma smiled, setting her bag down on the couch. Baby steps toward not being terrified of commitment. "I'll take it." He handed her a glass of wine. "Dinner is in the oven. We have about 45 minutes. I was hoping you might read me some of that poetry you mentioned on our first date." Gemma felt her stomach flip for an entirely different reason. "I told you, it's terrible." "I don't believe that for a second. Please, Gemma, share something real with me." She had brought one of her notebooks, tucked into her bag like contraband. The idea of reading her most private thoughts out loud felt more intimate than anything physical they had shared, but she trusted him. After everything they had been through, she knew Dominic would guard her vulnerabilities like treasures, settling onto his couch. Gemma opened the notebook to a poem she had written 2 weeks after their first date, when she thought they would never have a chance together. This one is called Almost. She said quietly and began to read. We were almost a love story. Almost a chance worth taking. Almost brave enough to try. But almost is the saddest word. A bridge that ends in empty air. A promise that dissolves like morning mist. I will remember you as almost. The man who made me feel alive. The dream I wasn't allowed to keep. The happiness that slipped through my fingers. Like water, like light, like time. Almost loved you. Almost had you. Almost wasn't afraid. Almost. When she finished, Gemma looked up to find Dominic watching her with an expression so tender it made her chest ache. That's beautiful, he said softly, and heartbreaking. But Gemma, we're not almost anymore. We're now? I know. I wrote a different one last week. Want to hear it? He nodded, moving closer to her on the couch. This time, Gemma's voice was stronger as she read. You were the unexpected, the surprise wrapped in a blind date, the answer to questions I stopped asking. You are the reason I believe again, in taking chances, in trusting feelings, in love that doesn't come with conditions. You are the poem I didn't know I was writing, story that found me when I stopped searching, the man who sees all of me, even the parts I tried to hide. You are no longer almost. You are absolutely, completely, perfectly mine. Dominic's eyes were suspiciously bright when she finished. He took the notebook gently from her hands and set it aside, then pulled her close. I'm keeping you, he said against her hair. Forever if you'll let me. Forever sounds perfect, Gemma whispered back. They stayed like that, wrapped in each other's arms as the sun set over Central Park, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. The timer for dinner went off eventually, pulling them back to reality. But neither of them moved right away. Best blind date ever, Gemma said. Echoing Dominic's words from months ago, best accidental setup in history, he agreed.